Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Bob Atlas. I'm one of the co-owners and co-founders of Fire Alumni. We are here today with Deputy Chief Steve Prziborowski. Chief Prziborowski has spent his entire career in the working with entry-level firefighters and promotional candidates, helping them meet their career goals of either getting hired or getting promoted in the fire service. He specializes in training and education in the areas of officer development, leadership, entry-level firefighter preparation, promotional preparation, and strategy and tactics. Steve Prziborowski has over 20 years of fire service experience, currently serving as Deputy Fire Chief. Steve is also an instructor for the Chabot College Fire Technology Program in Hayward, California, where he's been instructing fire technology and EMS for 7 years. He was the EMT Program Director and Primary Instructor. Steve is the past president of the Northern California Training Officers Association and was named the 2008 Ed Bent California Fire Instructor of the Year. Steve is a California State Certified Chief Officer and Master Instructor. He has earned a master's degree in Emergency Services Administration, is a graduate of the Executive Fire Officer Program at the National Fire Academy, and has received the coveted Chief Fire Officer designation through the Commission on Professional Credentialing. Steve is contributing editor to Firehouse.com, Fire Engineering, has mentored and coached countless entry-level firefighters and promotional candidates, is a regular speaker and presenter at the fire service events and conferences throughout the country, and he's authored numerous articles in leading fire service publications. Most recently, he introduced 3 new books. The first, Reach for the Badge, How to Master the Fire Department Entry-Level Testing Process. The next one was the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide. And for promotional candidates, he's created How to Excel at the Fire Department Promotional Exam Process. Welcome, Chief Prziborowski.
Thank you, Chief Atlas. Happy to be here today.
We're glad to have you. Over the years, we've had the great opportunity, you and I and the crew here at Fire Alumni, to collaborate on some great events and projects, and I appreciate those experiences. Recently, we've done a number of the firefighter workshops together, and we're excited to be able to talk today about some of the things relating to the 25 Reasons to Hire You as a Firefighter live event. During this time, I've got to know you as a leader who values doing the right thing, which is something that I appreciate very much, and giving everything you've got each and every day. You're a role model of the fire service and one of the individuals who's leading us into the new era. I can't help but mention to the folks that are watching how down-to-earth and approachable you are. 2 great qualities that make a firefighter so well respected these days. The fire service is fortunate to have you, and we at Fire Alumni are especially honored today to have you with us and be able to work with you.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Bob. Thank you very much, and I'm honored and humbled to be able to be a part of Fire Alumni and help out those that want some assistance to get hired and or get promoted in the fire service. So thanks for letting me be here today.
It's our pleasure. So we'll talk about the event here in just a little bit, but just for the folks that are going to have an opportunity to see this, tell us a little bit about who Steve Prziborowski is.
Well, I've been happily married to my wife, Bonnie, someone I've been very fortunate to call my wife for about the last 15 years, going on September of this year. We don't have any kids. Both of us are very busy enjoying what we do for work and other things, so no kids, but we're in between pets right now as well, too. We unfortunately had to put down our yellow lab a couple of years ago, but hopefully in all due time we'll make that plunge to get another dog again. Beyond that, besides, that's pretty much about, I think, about the main thing without getting into too much of the other stuff.
Tell us a little bit about your education. What drove you to become so well educated in fire service and emergency services?
Well, it's one of those things that I got into the fire service a little bit late, and I say a little bit late. I think I was 24 and a half when I got hired full-time for the first time. So firefighting is something I always wanted to do, but it was one of those things I didn't take seriously for a while. So when I got out of high school, I enrolled in a 40-degree program at Cal State Hayward, now Cal State East Bay, looking at firefighting sort of as a possibility still, but not really knowing where my path was. So knowing that I was at Cal State Hayward, I had accepted there. I grew up in the Bay Area. I just started on the course of action of criminal justice administration because that was the closest thing to fire technology. And once I completed my 40 degree there, that's when I decided to go full-time into this process. So then I went to Chabot College down the hill and worked on getting my 2-year degree in fire technology because I knew that completed a EMT program, a Firefighter 1 Academy, and also made me more marketable and be able to take more tests. I am so glad that I finished my 2-year degree and my 4-year degree before I got hired, because as we can all attest to, it's so challenging getting education accomplished while we're on the job and we have family commitments and everything else going on in our lives.
Absolutely.
And then about 5 years ago, I finished up my 10 years ago, time flies, finished up my master's degree in emergency services administration, just knowing that I had that desire to promote higher in the fire service and just to be able to leave myself a lot of options. So that, for the most part, covers the key points of my education.
Tell us a little bit about your career. I mean, obviously, you know, a little later on in life, making a decision to change careers kind of midstream. What was your motivation for changing careers, and then what has happened to you since you made that choice?
Well, as mentioned, you know, firefighting is something I've always been intrigued about, even since I was a young child. The challenge of when I decided to take that serious, that was really the key point. And I was working at Long's Drug Stores. When I got hired when I started working at 16 years old when I was still in high school, I got to work at Long's Drug Stores, now known as CVS Drug Stores. And I enjoyed working there. A lot of great people. A lot of my good friends were working there as well, too. But it just wasn't a career. It was a good job. And I promoted up into the management ranks. I was getting a lot of good experience. I was going to college, so it was help paying for my college bills. But it just wasn't what I wanted out of life. And I had some family friends that just really kicked me into gear to say, you know what, you need to start doing this. And I can't remember the exact moment, but at that point I realized I needed to take this seriously. So really, when you're in your early 20s, there's a lot of ways to go about this. And my friend Greg Vitz and I, who Greg's now a Stockton Fire Department captain, we've been best friends since junior high school. We both pretty much were doing the same things. Went to Cal State Hayward together, worked at Long's Drugs together, and decided, you know what, here's our courses of action. So we decided to enroll at Chabot College right after we finished our degrees and, you know, focus on getting our EMT, getting our Firefighter 1 Academy, hopefully start the work experience program through Chabot College, right along with Oakland Fire Department, you know, and obviously taking tests as much as we could to hopefully get hired. And our plan was to hopefully get our EMT, get Firefighter 1, get hired. But as we know, life doesn't always work according to plan. And especially in the early 90s when we were testing, it was very challenging to get hired for a lot of folks. So, of course, our backup plan at that point was to finish our 2-year degrees while we're testing and then go to paramedic school. Well, both of us have been doing very well in tests. You know, both of us came out top 3 of Union City, and both of us, neither of us were hired off that list, and because of a few other reasons that were going on within the city at the time. And I'm not bitter, and that's the way things go. And it was a good eye-opening event of how the fire service works, and that you can't take things personally, especially when departments have diversity needs that they have to take care of. So at that point, we went to paramedic school. And once we finished paramedic school and became licensed paramedics, that's when it really dawned on us of how the competition really gets narrowed down. So during this whole course of time, as we're going through Chabot College and also paramedic school, both of us were also serving as fire explorers for the City of Alameda Fire Department. Now, we were too old. 14 to 18, I think, was the usual age range for explorers. So we were associate advisors helping out the firefighter, now Division Chief Darren Olson, with just, you know, basically serving as explorers, but helping with other things too, because we'd also been through the Firefighter 1 Academy at Chabot. So serving as explorers, also as a student firefighter with Oakland Fire Department, the Chabot College Work Experience Program, where I probably saw more action on the fire ground in a year and a half there with Oakland. I'll probably see in 30 years down here. Nothing personal, it's just the way things go in a big city sometimes. During that time as well, too, I was also hired part-time up the Elk Grove Fire Department as a part-time firefighter. So basically making $5 an hour, but it was great because it got me into the PERS retirement system, even though I had to pay. I didn't get medical benefits, but that's okay. I still had some benefits through Longs because I was still working on it. And then also had a chance to just get some valuable experience working in the field, and all that over the course of about 4.5 years, trying to progress myself upward, doing what I could. And then I finally got hired with Santa Clara County Fire back in 1995, where I've been very happily working since, going on 19 years come October. So working my way up County Fire from firefighter, engineer, paramedic, up to fire captain, up to battalion chief, and now up to deputy chief. And I'm just very fortunate to be in the position I'm in for just so many reasons, with a great department and with a lot of great things going on. So a lot of things going on, but I wouldn't say everything went according to plan. I would have loved to have been hired sooner in life, but I think it was sort of better that I was hired after, you know, about 4.5 years, taking about 40 tests across the state, because it really made me appreciate what I got, plus I got with a great department. So all that in a nutshell.
Certainly, you jammed a whole lot of activity in a very short period of time, and I think what's important to note here is whether you start early in your career in your early 20s, or whether you start like some of us later on in your career, late 20s, early 30s. It doesn't change the fact that you have to put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. The only difference is the people that start later in life don't have the luxury of kind of sitting back and waiting around. So, it's interesting. You mentioned how many years you spent and how many tests you take, and not that not that you can't get hired on your first test, but I find the average number of tests before a candidate gets hired to be somewhere between 30 and 40. I took 45 tests in 2.5 years. But that was
that's still better.
Yeah, that's what I call making a job out of getting the job. You have to devote at least 40 hours a week to your career objective, or you're not going to have it, because I promise you there are other people out there that are doing that. So yeah, that's an exciting story. So a lot of stuff happened to you in your career. You went through a lot of different things, touched on a lot of different aspects of how you got there. Did you have a mentor coming up in the fire service that kind of guided you along?
Yeah, I was actually very fortunate. While I didn't have any family members per se that were in the fire service, I did have a couple family friends that were involved in the fire service. Daryl Card was a captain with the Stanley Under Fire Department, friend of the family, as well as Dave Cameron, who was a battalion chief and then deputy chief with Stanley Under Fire Department before they merged with the Alameda County Fire Department. So it was perfect. I had Alameda County Station 9, I believe it is now, which used to be Stanley Under Station 1, about 4 blocks away. So I used to go hang out there all the time when I was a kid in junior high school and high school. Again, not putting it together necessarily. I mean, if I wish I could turn back the clock, I would have tried to jump in at 18 years old, go right to Chabot College. But on the other hand, I'm glad I sort of waited, because I got my 4-year degree done, and of course I was more mature at that point. But I think really Daryl Carg and Dave Cameron really helped me the best, because they let me, hang out at the station with them, do ride-alongs with them, and really just get a chance to see what it is like. And then, of course, there's other people that I came in contact with, and that was one of the best things I learned about wanting to become a firefighter, was letting others know my desires. A lot of people keep their cards close to them, whether it's getting promoted, getting hired. But I found that by at least sharing my cards, what that did was that when I told people I was interested in becoming a firefighter, it was amazing the doors that opened, because it was like, well, my brother's a firefighter, my cousin's a firefighter, my neighbor, my uncle, and that led me to a lot of things. But at least my 2 mentors probably helped me get started the most, and I'm very grateful to this day for the 2 of them.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember one of my mentors, he was an assistant chief in the Milpitas Fire Department. And I remember certainly when I got hired, I wanted to pay him back. And I said, what can I ever do to repay you? And he said, just remember, when somebody else comes knocking on the door once you get hired, to make sure you open it up and help them. Did you see some of that same thing coming from your mentors?
I see a lot of the same, because I think whether or not they know each other, those that take the time to be mentors, like yourself, myself, Judon, Brian, all of us that want to do that, the names and the faces may change, but a lot of it's the same thing. We're very happy and appreciative for those that have helped us out, and now we're doing a lot of the same to others. So I totally agree that we're seeing a lot of the same things.
That's fantastic. Now, we've talked a little bit about your career and the mentorship. Obviously, at some point in your life as a young adult, you had to make a decision to get into the fire service. What was that thing that made you decide? At what moment and what things kind of piqued your interest?
Well, as strange as this may seem, like I said, it was that one defining moment that really told me that, I'm going to do this, was toward the end of my 6.5-year degree program at Cal State Hayward, and that is not a typo in the math there. It was just I was taking my time trying to figure out my way out. But as I was getting toward the end of the program and realizing I'd been working for Long Strugs for about probably 7-8 years, give or take 7-8 years at that point, and I remember I was out golfing with one of the managers, Jerry Odo, and Jerry was a very good role model, a very good individual. And I remember at one point we were talking about something, and he'd been a manager for a number of years, and I was like a junior manager at the time. And I remember him saying about his day, he goes, I was golfing last week with somebody else, and I think it was like some stockbroker or financial wizard. And apparently the guy was telling Jerry that the most exciting thing of his day was some big stock transaction or, some big thing that made someone a lot of money. And Jerry's joking. He goes, the biggest highlight of my day was building a display of feminine hygiene products They were going on sale for the next week. And he was sarcastic and very funny about it, but it was one of those defining moments that go, you know what? I mean, as much as I loved doing that, and I knew I had options, it's hard, taking risk is challenging when you're in your comfort zone. And that was that defining moment that's like, you know what? I remember telling Greg, it's like, we got to go for this thing full time. We're not getting any younger, and let's start out at it. And, that I think still is the defining moment. That, not to say that I wouldn't mind still working there, and I have some friends that still work for CVS. It's just not me. And I'm very fortunate for the time I had there, but now for the time I'm doing here.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a phenomenal story. Everybody has their own little story, and I think it's important that as individuals, we encourage the new firefighter candidates to take note of what their story will be. And fortunately for us and for candidates in the fire service, you did make that decision to come into the fire service, and we're grateful for that. You've done a lot of great things for a lot of people. We've known each other for a long time, as I mentioned earlier on. And you've really worked long and hard with entry-level firefighters and promotional candidates to kind of help them get along in their career. And I know that's a labor of love. It's a service of love. We know it takes up just about every other waking moment between family and our regular jobs in the firehouse. But for a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the entry-level firefighter and the hiring process. You've had an opportunity to see a lot of firefighters come up through the fire service, spending time in the training division, recruit academies, all that stuff. What's been your experience with today's firefighter candidate, the person that we're talking to today, who is eagerly trying to gain the knowledge to effectively pass through the entry level hiring process? What experience could you relate to them?
Well, in some ways, the candidates of today seem the same as candidates of the 10, 20 years ago when I started getting involved in this process, but it seems like for whatever reason, maybe it's generational based or something else, that the candidates of today seem to want the fast track. I mean, I get that, especially if you're older and you need to, time feels like it's passing you by, but there's a lot of folks, especially that are 17, 18, that want that fast track, and I get that call a lot of time or that email is, what's the fastest way to become a firefighter? And I usually have to try not to be too sarcastic or, I don't want to turn them off, but I also want to tell them there is no fast track. If there was, we'd all be doing it and we'd be getting rich selling the formula. But good things come to those who wait. And it's amazing that a lot of candidates actually get turned off by that because, again, they think, okay, well, he's not going to help me. I'll go on to somebody else. Well, there is no fast track. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm glad I wasn't hired right out of high school. And I know some people that have been hired right out of high school or maybe in their early 20s that have done great and have led great careers. I'm fortunate I got hired full-time. I mean, I didn't get hired full-time until I was 28 and a half, I think. And again, I think I was more mature at that point. So there is no fast track. And there is no really easy way of getting it either because a lot of candidates, okay, so if I finish up my 2-year degree program, I'm in, right? And it's like, well, this is not like Heald or some other private school that has job placement programs. We don't have that ability. It's a different industry. I mean, you get your certain qualifications, your EMT, your paramedic, your firefighter 1, to be able to take more tests, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. Now you're competing with hundreds, if not thousands, and it's still up to you to sell yourself in that short amount of time in the oral interview. And more importantly, once you get past that phase, be able to convince us through your background investigation, psychological evaluation, and the recruit academy, and the probationary period that you're good fit. So I see a lot of people wanting things fast. And again, I think that's maybe a generational thing, but there's no easy way around that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I see in candidates today.
Well, it's interesting. I remember a long time ago one of my mentors saying that nothing good is free and anything worth having is worth waiting for.
Exactly.
What I've come to see with a lot of candidates is that they're eager. And they make an early mistake of thinking that they can get through something really quick, just like a regular job, like you and I have both experienced in corporate America, and that's just not the case. I mean, you alluded to the fast track, and the current generation wanting to have everything right away. I mean, unfortunately, we live in the world of microwave ovens and handheld phones. I mean, gosh, back when you and I were in our 20s, you had to pick up a phone and dial it, and it wasn't with the push buttons either. Not that we're old and over the hill, but we've matured also. And I think what's important also for candidates to recognize is technology. Technology is available to them for them to not necessarily shorten the process, but help them to become sharper and a much more valuable candidate early on. Just like we've discussed, your books and some of the things that are available through, new electronic mediums and so forth. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. But that's why, we as an organization, Fire Alumni, has made the decision to use technology to help advance. I mean, right now, the technology, the fact that, we're both talking on Skype, and the people that watch this will have an opportunity to see it in a split screen. And you and I are 75 miles away from each other. When we came into the fire service, things like this didn't exist. So it isn't that it's going to happen quicker, but you will be a much better prepared candidate. So tell us, what types of struggles and challenges a new candidate faces today in the hiring process?
I was thinking about that, and even though it's a different time and place, there's still some of the same, but some different challenges too. I think some of the struggles that some may have is the sad thing is, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've seen the economy go south in late 2006, give or take. A lot of departments haven't recovered, so a lot of economies, even though people think they're getting better, are not getting better. And even if they are getting better, it's not like you're going to see an instantaneous switch back to the way it was, the way it should be. So I think some of the challenges are getting into an industry and not getting jaded, because unfortunately, as we all know, there's a lot of departments that have taken a lot of hits, whether it's to their wages, their benefits, their working conditions, their morale. It is what it is, and and we can't change that. But the challenge is there's a lot of personnel that work for some of these departments that are very miserable, and unfortunately that can come across when candidates are visiting firehouses, and even when they get hired by a department, here they are all gung ho, and next thing you know, they're all miserable. I remember one of our students at Chabot College got hired by a department that had faced layoffs, faced pay cuts, and they've been on the job for a year, and you'd think, like we all thought, they would just be in heaven, happy as ever to have the job, and here they are basically saying this place is screwed up and it's miserable and blah 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 blah, and that customers hate us and no one appreciates us. I'm like, you barely off probation. Well, this place is miserable. Leave. Well, I can't leave. I got to pay for pay my bills and support my family. Then better make the best of it. I think the key is, it is easy to get jaded, and I'm not saying that there's not a reason to get jaded, but you can't let that get to you. I think that's one thing. Another thing is that the fire service today is not the same way. I mean, when you and I got in the fire service, ALS, Advanced Life Support Engine Companies, and transport were still very new for a lot of us. I mean, even BLS EMT service only came into play, not that long ago before that. Hazardous materials was the big thing of the 80s, and it seems like ALS was the big thing of the 90s. Now I think we see a lot more departments getting into like emergency management, emergency preparation, because these big disasters are hitting, and city elected officials and administration and government are getting hammered for not preparing for these emergencies, whether it's the hurricane, the tornado, and not being able to mitigate them before and after. So really the fire service today is not going to be the same as it is 10, 20 years ago. We had a sexual harassment training class. One of the firefighters last year he didn't like some of the things that the person training was saying that he can't do anymore. And he was joking. He goes, well, 20 years ago I used to be able to say this or say that. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, right, but that was 20 years ago. You can't say things like that anymore in the firehouse. And I could see his frustration. But at the end of the day, if you get into this job and, say, work 20 to 30 or 40 years in a career, no matter what it is, there's going to be change. So you've got to be prepared for those changes, whatever they're going to be. I mean, you mentioned technology, which was non-existent 15, 20 years ago. Look at it now, who knows where it'll be. So I think being able to be open-minded, open to change. With the economy the way it's at, I don't have a crystal ball. But a lot of people you hear out there are saying that, we need to get, our call volume has gone up and our staffing has gone down. And we need to get back to this. We need to add more stations. Well, in today's reality, with salaries and benefits the way they are and trying to equal the revenue that comes in from the cities, and nobody wants to have to pay more taxes, there's going to be some challenging, tipping points for some departments. And I don't know what the answers are, because it's different for every community. So at the end of the day, if you're getting into this line of work to be rich, find something else. I mean, if you're getting it to serve others and be happy and have, a great bunch of people to work with and some great days and some bad days and all those other good things, I think you're going to be in for a good ride. Another last thing I'll talk about as a challenge is safety and peer pressure. Getting back to students that we've trained at the College Firefighter 1 Academy, You train when you bring people in a college academy to wear your SCBA, wear your PPE, do these things the right way. And then sometimes they get hired by certain departments. And unfortunately, peer pressure comes in once they get off probation or they get exposed to fire stations. You don't want to wear your SCBA. Why are you wearing that? You don't need to do that. Oh, come on, tough it up. And it's very challenging because we see that happening where we have the best of intentions in the academy, in the training, and then, of course, they get to somebody out there that maybe twists their arm or pressures them not to do that and do the right thing. So I think the key is safety is a big issue, as we all know. Culture is a challenge, I think, that we're never going to go away. I mean, we all have our own unique cultures, and I think the key is, as we've all taught when we've taken leadership classes, we've all learned that leadership is lonely. Well, sometimes just doing the right thing safety-wise is going to be lonely. You may be the only one that wears your SCBA, but it's your health, your safety, your survival, and your hopefully long-term retirement in your family. So I think those are some of the challenges I think candidates are faced with today, if not a number of others.
Well, those are good, and I think those are right on the money. I know, our department faces the same challenges, and as I travel across the country, I see the same things, from place to place, no matter where we go. You mentioned ALS, hazmat, those kind of things, and even BLS when we first got hired. I remember sitting at the coffee table, filling out a three-copied version of a patient care report, and now everything's on a computer. The important thing I think for a lot of the entry-level candidates to note is that there's always going to be challenges, changes, and struggles in the fire service. And it's not so much what the individual ones are, and you alluded to it, is it's not what they are, it's how you handle it.
Right.
Change will be significant in the fire service. We're seeing significant changes, economically at the department and organizational level and throughout the United States, and how we adapt as individuals in the fire service, either accepting or rejecting those things, really is going to determine the kind of quality of career that we have. And, we always say in the firehouse, that this job is too good to waste. You get to go out and be with people you enjoy being with and do some phenomenal things for the general public, and to litter that up with what I call stinking thinking, is a tragedy. So I think, ethically, the candidate has an obligation to remember what it was like on their very first day that they get hired, and carry that through. I remember, my fire chief, when he originally gave us his invocation at the end of our recruit academy, he said, whenever you're worried about it, whenever you're thinking about it at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you've gone to that elderly woman for the 13th time in that day or in that cycle, remember back to this day when you sat in the audience and got your badge pinned on you, and how excited and enthusiastic you were. And he says, remember that through the rest of your career, because there will be those days that challenge you and try you. And so I say, the best thing you do is just do your job and do what's right always. Ethics are important.
Well, each of us has a choice. We can wake up in life miserable, or we can wake up happy and try to do the best we can. And this is the part I try to stress to everybody. It's so many of these things that go on, whether they're, stations getting browned out or pay cuts or whatever bad things are happening out there, they're above our pay grade. And then sometimes they're above the fire chief's pay grade. So we can either be miserable and complain about this stuff all day, or we can at least, when Mrs. Smith calls for the 13th time of the day, still have our A game, our smile on when it's showtime and the bell goes off, because that's the only control we have over is what our attitudes are. So at least for now, thankfully, I'm fortunate to choose to have a positive attitude, but I know, and part of what drives me is there's somebody out there that don't. So hopefully we can all remember that speech your chief gave, because it is so true. It's, that one day when we're on that oral interview panel saying we're promising the chief to do everything to make that department better, I sometimes wonder what happens between then and some bad events. But
you're right, and I think your point important about it's your attitude every day when you wake up. You have a choice. That's critical. On September 14th, you'll be joining Fire Alumni and myself at Las Positas College in Livermore, California. We'll be there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the 25 Reasons to Hire You as a Firefighter live event. We're excited about that. Why is this event so important to candidates to attend, and take note of the methodology behind your 25 reasons why they should be hired?
Well, I'm not saying these 25 are the best end-all, save-all reasons, but in all my years of sitting on both sides of the board as a candidate for taking about 40 tests, and of those 40 tests I mentioned, about half of them were lotteries where I couldn't even get past the random lottery. So, but still, it was probably 30 to 40 interviews I had to do. So I've been fortunate to be a candidate, but also be a rater and a proctor on this side, and now having a chance to be able to see candidates from a different angle in the Recruit Academy as well as their background psychological evaluations. So really why I put together the 25 reasons is because I tried to culminate those items that I've really seen people that do those types of things turn out to be successful, and in some ways those that are not successful, it's sort of the opposite of don't do as others do. So really ideas that I've seen that have helped myself but also helped a lot of others that I really think can be beneficial to candidates. Now, of all the 25 reasons, not every reason may apply to everybody. Not every reason may work for everybody. But at the end of the day, there's going to be at least one nugget I think everyone can take away. And I say that, sarcastically / jokingly, but at least one nugget. I would hope they come away with a lot more than one nugget. But at the end of the day, if you come in with at least hoping to get one thing out of this, I've done my job. But a lot of the ideas that I share are not rocket science. I'm not making things up out of the blue, but I'm trying to package things I think can be very beneficial for candidates if they, apply some of these things to them and how they live their life, how they act. Because it's sad when, we've been on the other side of the oral boards and the hiring process, and there's so many things that go down that it's like, God, I wish I could share this with others of, try not to do that, or this turns off a department, this turns on a department, and so forth. And as we know, every department's different. Every fire chief has different expectations, different desires. Every department has its own culture. But at the end of the day, some of the core values that I want to share with others will hopefully at least be instilled in them to help them out, because there's nothing more disheartening to be able to bring someone on to a recruit academy, for example, and then find out that they can't make it through the academy for whatever reason, or they can't make it through the background or the psychological evaluation either. So hopefully at the end of the day, I'll share some of those nuggets that people will benefit from and, end up being successful with.
You alluded to just one nugget. I can tell you with 100% certainty, because I've read every 25 of them, all 25 of them, and I'm very familiar with them, that if I had those when I was, a new entry-level candidate just starting out, if I'd have looked at those and been able to project where I would be, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, and realize that so many of them have not only just been reasons that I want to have that the fire service should hire me, but they're just reasons why I get up in the morning and do the things that I do. And I think what's important for the people that are watching is to realize that not only are these 25 reasons that we should hire you, it's 25 reasons why you should get up every morning and, seek to live a life of service and be better as a human being. I mean, these are your parts of life. These are the things that make you who you are. And I think that's really what the basis of your creation of these is take those things that you already are and focus and share them with the oral board.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Well, the candidate is going to get obviously 25 reasons. And like you said, some candidates, all of them will hit. Some candidates, some of them will hit. What do you hope to leave with the candidate? What should the candidate take home from this event?
Well, hopefully the candidate will take home that there is no easy way to get hired, that each department is different, and can change. I'll use your department as an example. I mean, you bring a fire chief from the outside in who's got their own vision and values. They may have a different philosophy than the previous chief, just like the next chief that comes in that may come from inside could have a totally different value system. So I think the point I want to come across is the differences that are out there between departments, between cultures, between, fire chiefs, those people that are making the decisions. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to those core values. And some of the things people may look at me and just say, really, that's something mom or dad told me 20 years ago, or grandma, grandpa, whoever, you grew up with, or a family friend. Yeah, that's the sad part. Unfortunately, as we get older in life, sometimes that stuff that we sort of push to the side, we realize, I should have listened to them when they were younger, and I get it. But I think candidates will also come away with just, because I obviously don't just plan to share an idea and then just sort of leave it at that. I want to take time to discuss ideas, ask questions, pose questions to the audience, get feedback from those that are in there, because again, there's going to be all those in attendance will have different experiences, different backgrounds. Some maybe have never taken a test before. Some maybe have been doing it like you or I did, and some may even longer. I mean, some candidates may be out there for 10 years and they can't figure out what the problem is. Well, so I think hopefully getting a game plan of action that people can use, whether you're brand new in the process, a couple of years into it, 5 years into it, a game plan that you can implement today. Some things may not be viable because maybe people have, family commitments that they can't maybe do certain things that I suggest, or maybe because of whatever the current situation is. So people come away with some ideas that will hopefully inspire them to be able to at least keep that fire burning, because just like you probably hear, as I do many times, there's probably more frustrated candidates than there are happy candidates, because what happens, everyone goes full speed into this and thinks they're going to get hired in their first test or second test. They get their degrees, they get their academies done, they get their EMT, and then they realize they're one of 1,000 or more other people, and then I've taken all these tests and I can't get hired. How many tests? Well, I took 4. It's ridiculous. Like, 4, and you laugh because we're all seeing the same things. Like, no, why don't you take about 10 or 20 and then come back and we can commiserate. But even at the end of the day, something you're not doing is maybe not hitting it off with the other side. And then I hate to say it, there may be some candidates that can have all the education training in the world, but they're never going to get hired. Yeah. But even that's a far-fetched, because I know there's a lot of ones that we've passed on in the past that have made great firefighters elsewhere. So I say that just sort of tongue-in-cheek that they'll never get hired, but I honestly do believe if someone never gives up, there's a department for them out there. They may have to travel out of state. They may have to never give up for the next 20 years, because at the end of the day, when you give up, you give up. But there is a department out there for someone, and I'm hoping to hopefully get people to that department a lot sooner. So good, bad, or indifferent, not everyone will agree with probably everything I say, and that's okay. But hopefully it'll provide some good discussion and good points for people to take home and do as they please with.
Great information. I'm reminded by something that my dad explained to me, but I didn't understand till much later on in life, and that is that the older I get, the smarter my parents become. It's amazing how you don't realize, and you alluded to this earlier about the lessons you learn. Pay attention to what mom and dad are saying. They may know a few things.
Well, and we're fortunate. We're fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, to not have kids. It was just a choice my wife and I made, and thankfully, because we're so busy and we enjoy what we do, and we barely seems like have time for both of us. But we have kids all around us here in the neighborhood. But there's that example as you deal with having your kids grow up and all the frustrating times you have, and at some point they get to that certain age where it finally clicks in. It's like, you were right, Dad, you were right. Yeah, I know you don't want to tell me that, but that's okay. Yeah. I told my parents, and as hard as that was, but...
Yeah, well, and you also made a good comment, which I think is important, and I think that for a candidate to be able to walk away with a game plan, mm-hmm. I think that every opportunity that a candidate has to sit in front of somebody who may be on an oral board somewhere, or even just a firefighter who's incumbent and on the job today, it's important to come away with some other thing you can put into your game plan. Because you as a candidate, your game plan is not going to be the same as my game plan was, or the same as yours was, Chief. All of the game plans have to be a little bit different, because your game plan really is a function of who you are as a human being and what you bring to the table.
And what you can honestly, realistically do,
right?
Given your financial ability versus your family ability and everything else. So, very well said.
Absolutely. So we've discussed some really critical issues here, and ones that can make the difference, frankly, for a candidate between getting hired and not getting hired, success and failure. Specifically, related to the event that's coming up, is there anything that you want to add? Something you can leave the candidates with?
That's a good question. We could talk for hours on this, and I don't want to do that to anybody, ourselves, and God forbid anyone that has to listen too. But anything to add about the presentation coming up is just, come in with an open mind, come in hopefully hungry for more. Again, the badge doesn't fall out of the sky. I mean, the hard work that the average person puts into getting this career, and thankfully, I think it's good that we work hard to get the career that wasn't given to us, because, as we say, good things come to those who wait. But, I'm just hoping that folks will come away with just a bunch of good ideas that will hopefully reinvigorate or spark that flame to keep them going. Not going in the sense that building their resume, because I think I was guilty of that when I was starting out. I was just focusing on building the resume and getting every box checked, every certificate, until it dawned on me that departments don't hire resumes, they hire people. So not to say I was a bad person, but I probably could have been hired a lot sooner had I focused more on a lot of those things, demonstrating to the department that it wasn't just all about the resume, and being maybe more open about who I was, which can be challenging. You don't want to divulge too much, but you also want to divulge enough to get them to know what you are, know who you are, and want you to join their family at the end of the day. So again, I just have a lot of great ideas I want to share, and half a morning is not going to be enough time in the grand scheme of things, but I'll do my best to make it worth everyone's time and hopefully have them hungry for more. And I'll be happy to, stay around and answer questions and, be available after that too for anyone that couldn't make it.
Well, great. Thanks, Chief Prziborowski. We've been with Deputy Fire Chief Steve Prziborowski. It's been a pleasure and honor to have you with us today. For your information, if you have more questions that you might like to get answers to, Chief Prziborowski has got a wealth of knowledge located on his website at code3firetraining.com. And it's just a tremendous amount of information. You can also check him out at Chabot College's website as well. And what was the web address on the Chabot College one, Steve?
Nice and simple. We made it ChabotFire.com, CHJBOT Fire.com.
All right, ChabotCollegeFire.com. Beautiful.
ChabotFire.com, yeah.
All right. Well, for our viewers' information, Chief Prziborowski will be with us live at the 25 Reasons to Hire You as a Firefighter live event on September 14th at Las Positas College in Livermore, California. You can go to firealumnievents.com to register. We thank you for joining us today, Chief, and we look forward to having you, and we look forward to seeing all those that are interested in the information on September 14th. Have a great day. Take care and be safe.
You too, Chief. Appreciate your time and effort, and thanks for the opportunity as well for Chief Helmick and also Jadon as well. You guys are great. Thank you.